This relationship I'm in is a disaster. This job I'm in is a disaster. So often I see this with leaders. Looking at them, I'm like, do you not freaking read the room? You know what I mean? Do you not see what's happening right here? Take a look around. You're hearing the warnings and you're not paying attention to them. Now listen, I know you and I were talking about doing this, and you sent me some words, some vocabulary. I also put together some vocabulary that I wanted to run through. So getting into some terms from the aviation world, and I think it's always good. Look, I do this all the time with jiu-jitsu. Like I'll take, we're going to sweep them. We're going to maneuver. We got to set them up. Oh, we got to cover move. So we use these things for everything that we do, but some of these terms from air combat and really just from flying, I think are usable. First one, pitch. What's pitch?
Pitch is it's literally your nose moving up and down. So if you think about it like the horizontal axis, your nose is going above or below the horizon. So you're pitching the nose up or pitching the nose down. It's where you're moving the nose of the jet.
So you're either gaining altitude or you're losing altitude.
Your nose is going up or nose is going down. It doesn't necessarily
that's right.
mean
You could have your nose up and be losing altitude.
Right.
That's called getting ready to stall and die.
We might get to that. Ironically, like maybe the larger question is like when to do that. Like if you're stalling, people want to pull the nose up.
Oh, because they want to go up.
And then I got to pull the nose up because I'm going down. Like that's actually usually a mistake. So it is just where your nose is going. So it doesn't necessarily mean climbing or descending.
See, again, this is why I wanted to talk about this, because that's so important. Because how often do you see people, they're trying to correct themselves by moving in a direction that's actually not helping them at all.
That's right.
Oh, we're not doing well in our marketing. Put more money into marketing. It's like, okay, you're just adding more fuel to the fire.
And the word that always comes to mind is, and I think about this when I teach leadership, which we do all the time, is the counterintuitive nature of leadership. If you want to go higher, you don't always pull back on the stick. And that can be so difficult because if you're going to stall, actually what you're supposed to do is push the nose forward. It means you got to go down even more. Like, wait a second, this doesn't sound right. But that's how it is sometimes. Yeah. And that perfect example is, we're not getting enough return on marketing. Put more money in. That might be a mistake.
Or from a human aspect, like, Echo's not doing a good job right now. I need to take away more responsibilities from him. That might be the wrong move.
Yeah.
I might actually want to give him more responsibilities. Let him step up.
I remember, like, I hate to say even rolling with you, but I remember, like, the first time you and I were rolling.
Oh, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and you made a joke. You said something like, which you were just mocking me, but you said, like, push harder. Which was like, if I push harder, I might be able to move you. Which you obviously, and I knew when you said it, I was like, you're such a jerk. But your point to that was, and this is a standard thing, like, if I want you to move backwards, I should push on you. And if you don't go backwards, I should just push harder, right? Like, that's how our brains work. But you know as well as I do, that is not always the right answer. Mm-hmm. So inside that, it's counterintuitive, like, I shouldn't keep pushing harder won't solve this problem. Pulling back in the stick doesn't make you climb all the time. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of parallel.
Usable load. What's usable load?
It's what you can carry. And it's a huge measurement of an airplane now too, because you don't know what you're going to do. You don't know what you're going to be bringing. And so oftentimes we have these loads of a range of weapons. You'll have a couple of pure air-to-ground weapons. You'll have a weapon that might be functional both in the air and all the ground. Then you have weapons that are only good for the air. And so other things, fuel, all these different weights of things that go into that, even where they sit on the aircraft, for like lateral, like if you put a really heavy bomb too far out, it can make the jet less controllable. The point behind that is you have to know what you can carry and how long you can carry it, which means you now know what capability you bring and when with this thing that you're bringing, this useful load that you're bringing to the fight.
Which is when I was looking through these terms, I thought about when you're in business, right? And I'm in business, and you have things that you bring on board, and they're going to provide you with some capabilities. They're also going to cost you something.
Totally.
And there's times where I've worked with companies where you're like, hey, you've got these assets on board. What are you getting from them? And what are they costing you? And if you don't think about that usable load, you might end up in a bad situation. You 100%. Run out of fuel. You run out of capital.
The first GPS weapon that we started carrying was a thing called a JDAM, Joint Direct Attack Ammunition, GPS guided. GPS guidance is really good. It's actually better than my eyeball. You know what I mean? So it's a really cool technology. changed the way warfare worked because we could be really, really precise. Really, really precise. And maybe a tiny bit less precise than lasers, but lasers are cumbersome and it's hard to do. And like this thing was like GPS, cool, go to the target. The first weapon and the only one we carried was a 2,000-pound bomb. And for a fighter, 2,000 pounds, especially at a ship, is a lot, which means like if you're carrying a 2,000-pound bomb, that's 2,000 less pounds of gas you could bring back. And so even carrying this super cool bomb that was like changing
They didn't make any like 500-pound versions?
They eventually had, but when this thing first came out, the first one that came out was a 2,000-pound variant.
And I bet they're like, look, if we're going to use a GPS and it's going to cost all this money, it's going to do some freaking damage.
They eventually came out with 1,000 and 500, and now it's much more. Yeah. But the first one, and so to your point though, is you take off like, oh, this is part of my conventional. This is an awesome thing. It could be a huge liability to the point that sometimes like I never had to, but guys would have to jettison them to get back aboard the ship, which is total. It was your point is these things are real strengths and they have a drawback. All of them have a cost associated with them too. All these positive things have a counterweight associated with them.
Fluid mutual support. I mean, obviously this one's good to go.
This is so good to go. I mean, it's classic cover and move. This is a bit of an advanced concept in the idea that, first of all, the word mutual support is you and I are supporting each other. You know the word. You've used the word 1,000 times. Mutual supporting Overwatch positions. These are two things that are working in concert. I think what makes this complex or what makes this challenging is the word up front, which is fluid, which means it's going to adjust. It's fluid. It's going to move around. So in aviation, you and I, okay, I'm aircraft 1, you're aircraft 2. We got 4 of us out there today. You and I together, we're going to support each other. But old school used to be like, I want you 1 mile away from me, 1,000 feet above me. We call that combat spread. Like, that worked decades ago. It does not work anymore, which means sometimes you're going to support me from nice and close. Sometimes you're going to support me 5, 6, 7, 8 miles away. Sometimes you'll be in front. Sometimes you'll be behind. But the point behind the fluid mutual support is all your movements in the sky, keep in mind what you have to be able to do is provide support for me or be in a position for me to provide support for you. So you can't just move autonomously. You can't just move around in what might seem best for you if you lose the ability to provide or receive mutual support. So it's that concept that cover and move, mutual support, it varies constantly, 3-dimensionally throughout the flight. It is fluid. It changes all the time. And if you're not thinking about step 1 is, can I provide cover and move or can I receive cover and move? Your movement may seem optimal to you. It's actually a bad move.
Tethered. What does this mean?
It's connected to this. And the way I typically explain it is like, okay, Jocko, you and I are tethered. Meaning I'm the one that you are linked to. Like we have like a tether, a leash between us. And during the flight, I might have this plan like, okay, I want to stay tethered to Jocko all day. So I'm going to move in relationship to you and keep an eye on you. It might be that in the middle of the fight, I go, dang, it really doesn't make sense for you to have to stay tethered to me. I'm going to now switch. You're going to now be tethered to Echo. And so the point behind that isn't like who's going to be tethered to who. It's the concept that everybody has to be tethered to someone else. Nobody can ever be untethered.
Got it.
Because then I got, oh, dude.
Got someone on their own.
Alone and unafraid. He's on their own. We can't help him. We know that's going to be bad. So the concept of tethering is I always have to be thinking about not just conceptually mutual support, but also that individual is going to be required. Oftentimes I'll get a young guy and I'm like, oh, dang.
Is it official? Like a verbalized? Like, oh, Dave and I are tethered.
We don't, not during the flight, but we will, that is an actual word where we'll talk about when we build formations like, hey, these 2 aircraft are tethered, these 2 aircraft, like we'll talk about it.
So it's an official thing?
Yes. This is a real word. Absolutely. Yep.
Total pilot error. I almost went down a rabbit hole, and I probably should at some point. I started looking on all these aviation accidents yesterday. But one of the things that came up was just total pilot error, meaning this is 100%. And I read some of them. One of them was like, they didn't realize that this switch, the auto whatever switch was off.
Yep.
And they're focused on this other thing, and they just crash.
Yeah. Total pilot error mishaps read really badly because it's things like that. You're like, dude, what is going on here? Perfectly good airplane doing everything it's supposed to be doing, and the pilot is the sole cause of the mishap. It's actually very rare. When you think about the factors, they call them factors. When they do an investigation, they try to think of the factors that cause the mishap.
Is that where no factors come from? No factor?
Probably, or at least its terminology is correct.
Yeah.
almost always pilot error is a factor, but almost never the sole factor. The corollary is also almost always true, like especially in modern airplanes, it's almost never just the airplane. The pilot contributes some way. So it's usually a combination of both. So when you read a total pilot error, it's usually heartbreaking because as you're reading it, especially if you know the machine and know what that switch does or understand it, you're reading it because you already know the outcome. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe that they misunderstood or lost track or stopped paying attention. The most common one is something we may talk about, and we've talked about it before, is where you fly a perfectly good jet into the ground because you're looking at something else because you got distracted or like, yeah.
That's a CFIT,
That's
right?
a CFIT.
Controlled flight into terrain.
That's like the classic total pilot error. You take a perfectly good airplane functioning 100% correctly, and the pilot flies it directly into the ground for some other reason. Not like he's not dealing with a malfunction. He's not dealing with an issue with the jet. He just control flight, meaning everything's perfectly fine, and he flies it into the ground.
And it could be that they couldn't see, right? I mean, does fog? If I'm flying through a mountain range and it's foggy and I just slam into a mountain?
Yeah, I mean, yes, you could have CFIT in bad weather, but even then, like you have instruments and like
warnings,
information available to you by which that shouldn't happen. And to the point, it's like the plane is not causing that problem. You are.
So a CFIT is generally a total pilot error?
Almost always. The worst part about CFIT is what you described is a bummer. Like, oh, it's adverse external conditions. CFIT happens under perfect conditions as well, like day, sunlight, no fog. And so those are the ones that are the most heartbreaking, which is where it typically, the most common things that it happens is either on like a low level where you're flying in this, and that's not that common because you're usually paying attention. It's when you're diving towards the ground, like in a dive bombing scenario. And in that bombing, you're looking at something to like make sure your target is, you have like a good sight on the target, and you get focused on making a perfect little, they call it like a target designation. You're putting a little reticle, a little sight onto the target, and you want to keep improving it as you're in this dive, and you get so focused on the displays, you forget or you lose track of the ground. And I've seen videos of guys literally will just fly directly onto the target in perfect weather, clear day, beautiful sunlight, because they're focused on their targeting and not focusing on the ground, and they'll literally CFIT in the ground.
Target fixation.
Target fixation. That's exactly what it is.
I've worked with leaders, civilian leaders and military leaders, where it's so obvious. You're like watching them destroy themselves.
Yes.
You're watching them plummet to the earth, and you know they're going to crash. And you're just like in an aircraft. I mean, when you've seen a guy target fixated and trying to get that little screen, he's getting warnings in his ear that are going altitude,
and he's not
altitude,
even hearing it. Yep.
And he's not hearing it.
Yep.
And it says warning. I mean, all that stuff is happening,
right.
And he still hits. I've had guys where I'm telling them, like, listen, you cannot behave like this. If you behave like this, you are going to get fired. And they're like, still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
People, this is a classic case of when you're unaware of what's happening, you're not detached.
Yep.
You have to be able to detach. Otherwise, you're going to CFIT. You're just going to controlled flight into the ground. That's what's going to happen. I've seen people do this with not only in leadership positions, but they do this with their lives.
Yes.
Right? They start going down a path. It's so obvious that it's the wrong path to go down to everybody that's around them. The warnings, altitude, like wrong woman, like bad job, like drinking too much, like all these things. The warnings are so clear.
Yeah.
And yet they just stay on that path and boom, they explode and their life gets ruined. So this idea that you can have these things going on in your life where you can stop them, you can correct them, but you have to take a step back, look around and say, oh yeah, this relationship I'm in is a disaster. This job I'm in is a disaster. This alcohol that I'm using, this drugs that I'm using, this whatever I'm doing is this iPhone that I'm scrolling on, these things that I'm getting caught, all these things are a disaster and I can't do them anymore. And you're hearing the warnings and you're not paying attention to them. So this can happen. And it's so often I see this with leaders. I'm looking at them, I'm like, do you not freaking read the room? You know what I mean? Do you not see what's happening right here? Take a look around. What is the people's faces right now? People's faces, do they look engaged in what you're saying? Do they see, are they nodding their head like, oh, hell yeah? Or are they looking at you kind of with a blank like, Are there questions like, hey, how can I move forward with this? Or are there questions like, what are you talking about? I'm not really sure. Wait, what do you want us to do? Because if that's what you're getting, you got to read the room. You got to pay attention to the altitude, because you're going to burn in. So you need to be careful. See fit. Watch out.
Yes.